Hello. In today's lecture, let's talk about safety of botanical dietary supplements and dietary supplements in general. As we already discussed, most of safety issues related to those products are regulated by Federal Drug Administration Agency of the United States, or FDA. And in case of botanical supplements, as well as foods, safety issues which are of concern to FDA are the predominant ones. As you may remember, dietary supplements or food cannot really have health claims associated with them. So safety becomes a preeminent and dominant factor which decides whether a certain product can be marketed or not. So let's say you discovered a botanical extract which you believe can be a great botanical dietary supplement sold in the United States. What do you need to do? Well, as you already know, the regulatory agency you have to go to is FDA, or Federal Drug Administration Agency of the United States government. And probably the first thing you need to do is to see whether the product, like the one you're trying to sell, like this botanical supplement, has been already in use in the United States prior to 1994, the year when DSHEA, or Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, has been approved. You may remember that we've discussed DSHEA in previous lectures. If it was already in use before 1994, it means that it can be grandfathered. You can just go ahead and sell a very similar identical product without no need for further approval. You also may want to check whether after 1994, FDA has approved a product like the one you are trying to sell. If it did, you can also sell it unless there's a patent on it, or patent protection. But this is totally different ballgame. Now, if it hasn't been in use prior to 94 and hasn't been approved thereafter, what you need to do, you need to file what we call a new dietary ingredient application with FDA. And by doing so, you show FDA an intent to start selling a new botanical dietary supplement which has new dietary ingredient in it. I mean, again, this is a difficult part, really. What is supplement and what is new dietary ingredient? But one is the part of the other. And the main point which you have to prove to FDA is that your product is safe. Safety is a paramount consideration for dietary supplements because, if you remember, they are regulated based on safety, just like foods. And this is because you cannot really have efficacy or health claims for dietary supplements. They're supposed to be only used to supplement normal diet, not to cure, prevent, or mitigate disease. And therefore, safety is of paramount importance, and this is what you need to prove to FDA using scientific methods and using evidence. So what do you need to do to satisfy the safety requirement for this new dietary supplement product containing a new dietary ingredient which you just discovered? What actually do you need to prove to FDA to make sure that it approves your dietary supplement? And actually, FDA never approves anything. It will, if you're successful in your application, it will send you a no objection letter, which will just say it doesn't object to you marketing this product in the United States unless it has some issues down the road. The most important factor that should be in your application is what is called history of use or other evidence which satisfies that this particular product is safe. A good one is that some people, somewhere around the world, your botanical supplement has been already used safely and without side effects. If such kind of information is missing, you may have to do your own basic toxicology work on the product to show that it is at least safe in animal models. And what is the best is to do both, to provide irrefutable evidence from several sources that the product has actually been used before somewhere in the world safely, and provide the new toxicology data that I performed with, obtained specifically with your product. But the bar you have to jump over for safety of dietary supplements is much lower, is lower than that is for foods. Foods have to be saved beyond any reasonable doubt. A dietary supplement is just expected to be reasonably safe. And this is a crucial difference. See, the safety standards are different. For drugs, it's also different because there's a risk-benefit analysis. Every drug has some side effects, or most drugs have side effects, but then you have to weigh it against health benefits. For food supplements, there are no health benefits, but they just need to be reasonably expected to be safe, not absolutely safe as foods. So the schematic diagram on this slide basically shows you what kind of evidence will constitute very good evidence, adequate evidence, and which evidence will be inadequate evidence. And we are only talking about safety. We are talking about reasonably being safe. Again, as we said, history of use is a good start, but it's probably not going to be enough to satisfy FDA and to have non-objection letter to your NDI application. If you know your active, you know its chemical structure, again, you can show to FDA that those particular compounds belonging to this group can be safely used or are being safely used or maybe are already used in other products. So chemistry is important, but there you have to know the composition of your dietary supplement, which is not always possible. Toxicological evidence of safety performed in animal models is very valuable. And of course, this is beyond the scope of this lecture, but they're very well established acute and chronic toxicological systems, mainly in rodents, which are used to prove, or it never proves, but to show with reasonable certainty that your product will be safe or not safe. And of course, the gold standard is a clinical trial, which you can and probably should do in some cases. Clinical trial which only tries to assess the safety of your new botanical dietary supplement. Has nothing to do with how efficacious it is. So it's just safety trial in healthy volunteers. And that is a golden standard. So if you have all of those 4 ingredients, you probably will have a good chances for getting non-objection letter, and then you can start selling your dietary supplement. So why history of use is not enough? Well, there are many reasons for it. First of all, as we know, botanicals are complex extracts or dried powders produced from plants, and plants can be growing in very different conditions, making very different compounds. They can grow next to the roadside and harvested from there, and therefore be subject to lead pollution, for example, have high content of heavy metals. They can be sprayed with toxic herbicides and pesticides, and that can be a problem because the supplements which have been used before may have been wildcrafted from the pristine jungle or forest. The second issue is, of course, the dose. It's very hard to establish the dose for botanical supplements because you don't really know what your actives are and what your composition is, and it changes all the time. It changes batch to batch. It changes in different crops of plants. It depends on what life stage, what developmental stage you're harvesting the plant, whether it's wet or dry, the composition will change. And therefore, when you list your dose, and you have to list your dose, or your daily intake recommended dose, your serving on your supplement label, the dose has to be similar to what has been used historically. You cannot recommend something which is 100 times higher, for example, which people have been already exposed to. It has to be reasonable. It has to be the same level which people have been exposed to it. And then, of course, chemical modifications can create toxicological problems. So if you take the same extract, but you, for example, hydrolyze it, subject it to high temperature, add some reactive solvents to it, you will change chemical composition. And you remember, this is not allowed. So although this will be the same extract maybe which have been used before, by changing it somehow, you may absolutely change its safety profile. And therefore, just history of human use is too diffuse and too non-scientific for FDA to rely on exclusively for the approval of your new product. So just having a history of prior use is again a very tricky consideration which may not be satisfactory to regulatory agencies for the reasons we discussed on the previous slide. The best standard of prior use would be, of course, if people used your supplement as food before, because consumption as food usually means high doses, usually means many people, and that can be somewhat convincing. But anything else, because of great variability of botanical extracts and differences in dose, cultural practices, duration of exposure, frequency, makes it just inadequate. So another difference between dietary supplements and drugs and food, for example, is that actually dietary supplements can get away with much more than foods or drugs can get away with. And the reason for it is because Duché gave the responsibility for overall safety of the product to the manufacturer or distributor of the supplement. It is the person who markets and manufactures the product has to ensure that the product is safe before it is marketed in the US. And to remove it from the market, actually FDA has to prove in court, it has to prove that your product is not safe. So FDA has to actively go against the manufacturer to remove the dietary supplement and settle it probably in court if the manufacturer doesn't stop selling the supplement after the warning letter has been issued. In case of, for example, drugs or foods, FDA can just remove it from the market if it wishes to do so, if it has reasonable evidence which suggests that it's not safe, not efficacious, it can be removed. For dietary supplement, actually, it is the burden of proving that something is unsafe is on the FDA, and that makes a difference. One relatively recent development in the dietary supplement regulatory scene is a requirement to submit information about serious adverse effects to FDA within 15 business days. So if your supplement has some adverse side effects and you learned about it, you have to report it to FDA and then update FDA with any follow-up information. So at least that is now a law. And consumers and healthcare providers, your doctors, are also encouraged to submit the adverse effect, undesirable side effect information directly to FDA. They don't have to go through the manufacturer. So those are some safety precautions which help safety of dietary supplement as we know them today.